There is a strange moment that almost everyone knows, but rarely stops to examine. You are lying in bed, not trying to think about anything in particular. The room is quiet. The day is over. Nothing new is happening. And then, without warning, a thought appears. It may be a sentence about something you said earlier. It may be a memory from years ago. It may be a small fear about tomorrow or a sudden judgment about yourself that feels too specific to ignore. The strange part is not only that the thought appeared. The strange part is that you do not remember choosing it. You did not sit there and decide to begin. You did not carefully build the thought from the first word to the last. It simply arrived, already shaped enough to be noticed. And because it appeared inside your own mind, it feels like yours. But if you look closely, the experience is more complicated than that. Sometimes a thought does not feel like an action. It feels like an event. Something happens inside consciousness before consciousness can explain how it began. This is easy to miss because we usually speak about thoughts as if we are their clear authors. We say, "I thought about it. I decided. I realized. I remembered." But many thoughts do not begin with that sense of control. They come with a mood already attached. They come with pressure. They come with a direction. They seem to rise from somewhere just beneath the surface, and by the time we notice them, they are already moving. This is the strange problem at the center of conscious life. We live inside the mind, but we do not see everything the mind is doing. Most of us imagine consciousness as the center of the mind. It feels like the place where experience happens, where decisions are made, where thoughts are selected and examined. That picture is not completely wrong. Consciousness does allow us to reflect, compare, explain, and hold ideas in attention, but it is not the whole mind. And it may not be the place where many thoughts actually begin. A thought can appear in awareness after a long chain of hidden activity has already taken place. A memory was touched, a pattern was recognized, a feeling was activated, a possible meaning was prepared. Then, only at the end of that process, something becomes conscious. This can make the mind feel more transparent than it really is. Because we receive the thought at the moment it becomes visible, we assume we were present for its creation. But often we were not. Consciousness receives the finished surface and often mistakes it for the whole process. That is why thoughts can feel sudden. They seem to come from nowhere, but nowhere usually means that the process was hidden from view. A face becomes familiar before you can say why. A room feels tense before you know what changed. A sentence in a message feels cold before you have decided whether it truly is cold. In each case, consciousness is not absent. You are awake. You are aware. You are having an experience. But the experience has been prepared before you fully understand it. This is what makes consciousness so strange. It feels like the beginning of mental life, but very often it is only the moment when mental life becomes visible enough to report. One way to see this more clearly is to notice how often thought begins in the body. Imagine receiving a short message from someone important to you. It says almost nothing, maybe just a few words, no obvious anger, no clear rejection, nothing that could be presented as evidence. Still, something changes. Your chest tightens slightly, your attention narrows, you read the message again. A small explanation begins forming. Maybe they are annoyed, maybe something is wrong. Maybe you said too much earlier. The thought seems to arrive as a sentence, but it may not have started that way. It may have started as tension, as a shift in mood, as a quiet alarm before language entered the scene. Only afterward does the mind begin turning that feeling into a story. This happens because the brain is not waiting for conscious permission before it reacts. It is constantly reading the world for meaning. Tone, Timing, facial expression, silence, distance, memory, past experience. All of these can shape a reaction before we have a clear thought about them. Sometimes this protects us. If a situation is genuinely dangerous, the body's early warning system can move faster than analysis. But the same system can also misread ordinary moments. A delayed reply can feel like rejection. A neutral face can feel judgmental. A silence can feel heavy because it resembles another silence from the past. By the time the conscious thought appears, it may feel like truth, but what actually appeared may be something more fragile. An interpretation built from sensation, memory, and expectation. This is why some thoughts feel older than the moment that triggered them. They are not only about what is happening now, they carry the shape of what has happened before. The hidden work of the mind is not a flaw. It is one reason ordinary life is possible. If you had to consciously inspect every sound, movement, expression, and detail before responding, even simple life would become impossible. The brain has to prepare experience quickly. It turns noise into language, light into objects, faces into recognition, and social signals into feelings of warmth, distance, danger, or trust. Most of this happens too quickly to feel like thinking, and yet it shapes what becomes thinkable. A thought often appears at the end of a process that consciousness did not witness. The mind has already filtered the situation, selected what matters, attached emotional weight, and offered a possible meaning. This does not make thoughts useless. It only means they are not always simple windows into truth. Sometimes they are guesses that arrived before we had time to see them as guesses. A thought that appears suddenly can be strangely convincing. Part of its power comes from the fact that it comes from inside us. We tend to trust what feels immediate. If a thought arrives with enough force, it can seem less like an idea and more like a discovery. This is especially true when emotion is involved. A feeling underneath a thought can make that thought seem clear, even final. But strength is not the same as accuracy. The mind may be reacting to tiredness, stress, or uncertainty. It may be filling in missing information because not knowing feels uncomfortable. The thought feels like it explains reality, but sometimes it only explains the mind's attempt to handle uncertainty. This is one reason inner life can become so confusing. Thoughts do not arrive with labels. They do not say, "This is a memory. This is a prediction. This is fear speaking in the language of certainty. This is only an association." They simply appear. And once a thought appears, consciousness often has to decide what to do with it without knowing where it came from. Some thoughts are messages, some are guesses, some are echoes, some are only noise. The difficulty is that they can all feel intimate. They all appear in the same private space. A useful insight and a distorted fear can both arrive as my thought. So the question becomes uncomfortable. If a thought appears inside you, does that automatically mean it represents you? Not necessarily. A mind can produce fear without real danger. It can replay an old mistake without revealing a new truth. It can imagine something unwanted without turning it into a desire. Consciousness contains intention, but it also contains accident, memory, habit, and unfinished emotional material. Not everything that appears in the mind deserves the same authority. This has always been part of being human, but modern life gives the hidden mind more material than it can comfortably process. A phone screen is almost perfectly designed to reach the automatic parts of attention. A notification appears before you decide to care. A headline is shaped to disturb you before you have read the article. A photograph invites comparison before you have chosen to compare. A short comment can change your mood before you know why it mattered. The internet does not only give us information, it gives us a constant sequence of small psychological events. You open an app for a few minutes and leave with a mood you did not have before. Nothing dramatic happened. No one touched you. No one entered the room. But something inside has shifted. Maybe you feel behind. Maybe you feel judged. Maybe you feel irritated, excluded, distracted, or strangely restless. The cause may be hard to name because it was not one thing. It was the accumulation of small impressions that the mind began processing before reflection caught up. This is why silence can feel crowded now. Even when the room is quiet, the mind may still be finishing reactions that began earlier. A conversation returns while you were brushing your teeth. A post you saw for 2 seconds becomes a comparison that follows you for an hour. A possible reply keeps forming and reforming, even though no one is asking you to answer right now. Modern life creates more openings than the mind can close, more messages to interpret, more images to compare with, more signals that might mean something, more small moments that ask to be explained. Maybe the strange thing about thought is not that we have so many thoughts. It is that they feel so close to us, even when we cannot see where they came from. A thought appears in the most private place we know, and yet its beginning may be hidden from us. It can rise from memory, from fear, from habit, from the body, from a pattern the mind recognized before we did. Then consciousness arrives and says, "I thought this." Sometimes that is true, but sometimes consciousness is describing the moment of discovery, not the moment of creation. This does not make the mind less human. It may make it more human. We are not clear glass to ourselves. We are partly visible and partly hidden, always receiving pieces of a process larger than awareness can hold. So perhaps consciousness is not the place where every thought begins. Perhaps it is the place where the mind finally lets us see what has already started.